Good afternoon again. I am Lily Franklin. Today's presentation, we're going to cover contracting with a food service management company. Let's start out by understanding the difference between a vended meal contract and a food service management contract. A vended meal contract includes the procurement of cooked food. The vendor drops off the prepared food either in bulk or individual meals. The SFA staff at the site handles the meal service operation, which includes serving of food to students, handling the point of service, cleanup, and other functions. The vendor provides no services to the SFA. A food service management contract includes the procurement of food and services. While each contract could be different, typically the food service management company will cook and serve the food, handle the point of service, clean up, and other functions. The services provided by the food service management company are up to the SFA. All SFAs can procure cooked food as long as procurement regulations are followed. Charter schools are allowed to contract with the private for-profit food service management company for student meals. SFAs can use the state prototype vended meal IFB RFQ contract, but it is not required. The advantage to using the prototype vended meal contract is that you are assured the contract meets USDA guidelines. Whether the SFA uses a district vended meal contract or the state prototype vended meal contract, state agency approval is required prior to contract execution. Even though state agency approval is required prior to contract execution, it is still ultimately the SFA's responsibility to ensure the contract complies with local, state, and federal guidelines and regulations. Therefore, it is the SFA's responsibility to ensure the school district's legal department reviews all IFBs, RFQs, and contracting information prior to advertisement. SFAs must use the state agency prototype FSMC RFP contract. All USDA guidelines are addressed and met in the standard RFP contract. Ultimately, it is the responsibility of the school district to ensure all legal requirements are met in the contract. All FSMC RFP contracts require state agency approval prior to the contract being considered executed. State agency contract approval does not transfer responsibility for ensuring contract accuracy and completeness from the SFA. It is still the SFA's responsibility to ensure the RFP contract meets the needs of the school district. It is time to discuss the responsibilities of the sponsor. The SFA is responsible for ensuring that the procurement of a food service management company follows all USDA regulations as well as state regulations. Regardless of the dollar value, food service management company contracts must be competitively bid using the prototype provided by LDOE's Division of Nutrition Support. All SFAs must use the prototype for the year that is designated in the prototype. The sponsor is also responsible for completing the FSMC procurement process for the initial contract and annual renewals, overseeing the implementation of the contract to assure that contract terms are met and meet local, state, and federal procurement requirements. Monitor the performance of the FSMC at least twice each school year. For multi-site sponsors, conduct on-site reviews of meal counting and claiming procedures at all sites by February 1st of each year, and developing corrective action plans as needed. The sponsor must implement a food service advisory committee composed of parents, teachers, FSMC, and students to assist with menu planning and ensure that the FSMC follows through with menu changes and other functions. There have been a number of findings on administrative reviews due to the SFA not having advisory committee meetings on a regular basis, not including parents, teachers, or students, not having documented minutes of the meetings, and not implementing recommendations from the advisory committee. The authorized representative must appoint and train determining officials and the hearing official. Assistance is available from the state agency if needed. The sponsor must distribute applications for CMP benefits and related information to parents and guardians and collect applications submitted for CMP benefits. The sponsor must administer all aspects of the meal eligibility verification process, complete and submit the monthly claim, and maintain a separate food service fund to which reimbursement and other food service revenues are posted and expenses are paid. A consultant or food service management company cannot submit claims for the SFA. The state agency strongly discourages the SFA from giving out their username and password to others to submit for them. SFAs must remember that they are 100% responsible for anything submitted in their name or submitted by someone that has been given access to their online system. We have had instances where the SFA is dependent on a consultant to submit the claim, and the consultant does not submit in a timely manner. The SFA loses the reimbursement, not the consultant. The determining officials of the organization are responsible for processing free or reduced applications, including approval, denial, and follow-up with households to obtain complete information. The determining officials enter data into the computer and maintain control of the computer system that automatically determines eligibility. The sponsor is responsible for administering the direct certification process and for notifying parents and guardians of the student's application status. Our next topic is food service management company procurement. The prototype request for proposal provided by LDOE must be utilized to procure food and services with an FSMC. The prototype must be used with no alterations, additions, or deletions. The RFP and contract approval process should begin several months before the effective date of the contract. The effective date of all contracts is recommended to be July 1 or the beginning of the school year. Contracts are written for up to 1 year with the option to renew the contract for an additional 4 years, as indicated in 7 CFR 210.16. All contracts end on June 30th each year. Sponsors must comply with all regulations concerning procurement. That includes 2 CFR Part 200, USDA program regulations, which are 7 CFR Part 210, Part 215, Part 220, Part 225, Part 250, as well as other USDA guidance and instructions. The sponsor must also follow all state and local laws, regulations, and policies that are not in conflict with federal requirements. The USDA publication entitled Contracting with Food Service Management Companies, Guidance for School Food Authorities, also provides guidance for contracting. Now we will discuss procurement processes for food service management company services. To begin the process, download the appropriate year's RFP prototype from the Child Nutrition Program website. There is a detailed instruction guide on the CNP website to assist you in completing the RFP. If the SFA is only looking to procure vended meals, there are now prototypes for vended meal requests for quotes and invitation for bids on the CNP website. Developing the 21-day cycle menu. The FSMCs are no longer allowed to create their own 21-day cycle menus in the state of Louisiana. This change is necessary to ensure that all proposers are submitting proposals on equal footing. The variation in menus makes evaluating proposals more difficult for SFAs. Also, menu variations make competition unnecessarily difficult for smaller FSMCs to submit competitive proposals. Creating more competition in the FSMC market is the driving force for restricting 21-day cycle menu creation to SFAs only. Remember, the 21-day menu in the proposal must be used for the first 21 days. If the SFA is unable to create their own 21-day cycle menu, do not be concerned or discouraged by the new change. The state agency has thought about ways to empower and assist you in confident FSMC procurement. The SFA can use the state agency prototype menu if the SFA does not have the ability to create its own. Ultimately, the SFA is responsible for making sure the menu meets the minimum requirements before awarding the contract. The state agency has added some optional requirements that an SFA can choose. The RFP can dictate the number of entree choices at breakfast and lunch, and the SFA can also choose to have 2 varieties of fruit to comprise the fruit component at breakfast and lunch for grades 9 through 12. Very often, state agency representatives have seen where only 1 fruit is offered. The student can take 2 fruits, but the students are not aware. The FSMC must provide signage to indicate that students can take 2 fruits or both fruits. The FSMC contract is strictly a fixed fee contract. The FSMC can only charge the number of meals served at the rate submitted in the proposal. No other fees may be charged to the sponsor for any reason. There can be no late fees, charges for meals delivered, supply costs, additional employees needed. Any additional fees charged to a sponsor are unallowable and may not be paid for with child nutrition funds. FSMCs or vendors shall be provided the option to receive RFP documents and submit proposals through a uniform and secure electronic interactive system. Evidence of the interactive system being proposed for use by the SFA must be submitted with the Step 1 documents for state agency review and approval. FSMCs or vendors shall follow the standards for the receipt of election bids adopted by the Office of the Governor, Division of Administration, and the Office of Information Technology, and shall make the appropriate provisions necessary for the acceptance of electronic proposals for any purchases requiring competitive bidding. Any special condition or requirement for the submission shall be specified in the advertisements. The SFA shall provide documentation of the use of a uniform, secure electronic interactive system with the Step 2 documents. Email, web links, or submission through the school district website are not a replacement for this requirement. The newspaper advertisements are critical to a successful RFP. Louisiana law requires 2 separate advertisements in the newspaper prior to the proposal opening date. It is okay to publish the RFP documents on the school district's website. However, this does not replace the newspaper advertisement requirement. Failure to adhere to the Louisiana Revised Statute regarding newspaper advertising will result in the SFA having to rebid the RFP. Each FSMC must provide the SFA with the menu and menu certification documents utilizing a dated 1-week menu that includes portion sizes from the 21-day cycle menu included in the proposal. The menu and menu certification documents must include all age grade groups served. The menu must be developed in accordance with the provisions in 7 CFR Part 210.10. The menu certification documents must contain all required information needed for approval by the state agency. Meals may not be served under this contract until the contract is approved by the state agency. Each FSMC must include the signed Buy American certification form with the proposal. If the SFA awarding the contract notes that one FSMC submitting a proposal has no non-domestic food items listed and another has 25, the SFA should question why. If one company is able to purchase the domestic product, other companies should be able to as well. Remember that FSMCs can change the menu to avoid the use of non-domestic products. FSMCs are required to complete attachments B and D in the FSMC proposal. Our sponsors have requested to have both salary and benefit information for the FSMC's employees to assist in evaluating the proposals they receive. If one FSMC is providing 5 employees and another is providing 6 employees, the sponsor may evaluate the one with 6 higher. Many sponsors want to see that the FSMC employees are receiving a living wage and that the company is offering benefits as well as what type of benefits. A company with better salaries and benefits may be scored higher because these are factors that affect employee retention and affects the stability of the operation. The information can be provided by position or job title. The employee's name is not required. Bid bond. If FSMCs submit a proposal over $250,000 and they are participating in the SFSP, they must submit a bid bond in an amount that is not less than 5% and no more than 10% of the value of the contract for which the proposal is made, as determined by the sponsor and specified in the RFP. FSMCs are prohibited from posing an alternative forms of bid bonds. Cash, certified checks, letters of credit, and escrow accounts are not acceptable substitutes for bid bonds. The bond must be from one of the Soretic companies listed in the most recent issue of the United States Department of Treasury, Circular 570. Use the hyperlink on the slide to verify Soretic companies. Bid bonds may be provided to the state agency with the Step 2 documentation. Per SP 35, 2016, the state agency has established bonding requirements for FSMC contracts. When a FSMC and a sponsor enter into one or more contracts exceeding $250,000, the sponsor shall obtain a performance bond from the chosen FSMC in an amount of 10% of the total value of the contract for which the proposal is made. The total value of the contract includes all programs the SFA plans to operate. If the FSMC enters into more than one contract with any one sponsor and the aggregate total of the contracts exceeds $250,000, the FSMC shall obtain a performance bond covering all contracts. Food service management companies shall obtain performance bonds only from Soretic companies listed in the current Department of Treasury Circular 570. No sponsor shall allow food service management companies to post any alternative forms of bid or performance bonds, including but not limited to cash, certified checks, letters of credit, or escrow accounts. The performance bond, if applicable, must be provided to the state agency as a part of the Step 3 process. The state agency will not approve the FSMC contract without receiving a performance bond of 10% based on the value of the entire contract. The chosen FSMC must provide a certificate of insurance that indicates compliance with the RFP requirements. It is up to the SFA to review the certificate of insurance to ensure the FSMC has sent an insurance certificate listing the below coverages in the amounts specified in the RFP. Failure to review the certificate of insurance prior to sending the certificate to the state agency will result in delay of state agency approval. Insurance is required for the following: comprehensive general liability, automobile liability, and excess umbrella liability. The certificate of insurance must name the sponsor as an additional insured party on all policies. The FSMC must provide a waiver of subrogation in favor of the sponsor. A waiver of subrogation is an endorsement that prohibits an insurance carrier from recovering the money they paid on a claim from a negligent third party. The sponsor requires this endorsement from their FSMC to avoid being held liable for claims that occur on their job site. The insurance contract requires that the sponsor be notified of the cancellation of insurance policies at least 30 days before the cancellation of insurance. The certificate of insurance is submitted to the state agency with the Step 3 documents. The state agency will not approve the contract without receiving this document. Language has been added to the RFP contract to provide an FSMC with instructions on how a protest is to be conducted. The SFA shall indicate the person the protest is to be sent to, along with their title and mailing address. The protest must be filed within 10 days after receiving the award notice. The protest must include the name, address, and telephone number of the protester, the signature of the protester or authorized representative, identification of the purchasing agency, and the solicitation or contract number. A detailed statement of the legal and factual grounds of the protest. Copies of relevant documents must also be included. And finally, the FSMC representative must provide the form of relief requested. The SFA must provide a written response within 30 days of receipt of the protest. A written response to the protest must be made within 30 days from receipt of the protest. Pending the results of the protest or appeal, the contract that has been awarded shall not be affected by the protest or appeal. Pending final determination of a protest or appeal, the validity of a contract awarded and accepted in good faith shall not be affected by the fact that a protest or appeal has been filed. The SFA shall, in all instances, disclose information regarding protests to the state agency. The state agency added several evaluation factors, including professional development for staff, lost accounts, experience of the regional or district manager, unit manager and company dietitian, and local procurement. Experience of the regional or district manager, unit manager, and registered dietitian and local procurement are both optional criteria. If the SFA makes the decision not to use the optional criteria, enter 0 on the form under possible points. The SFA must complete this form with the weight of each evaluation criteria, remembering that cost must be the primary factor. It is attachment AA of the FSMC proposal. The total possible points must equal 100. This document is to be provided to the state agency with the Step 1 documents. The form approved by the state agency should be the form included in the RFP. No changes should be made to the award criteria after state agency approval unless the SFA notifies the state agency and resubmits the award criteria form for additional approval. The state agency has also added attachment BB entitled Food Service Management Company's Proposal Summary. This form summarizes the proposal submitted by the Food Service Management Company. The FSMC completes the meal prices and years of experience and then writes a summary of their proposal in each area in a condensed form. This summary form, along with the proposal itself, is used by the SFA to evaluate each food service management company. Another evaluation criteria that has been added is lost accounts. Each FSMC submitting a proposal must complete this attachment. On the attachment, the FSMC lists all CMP accounts in Louisiana, the SFA name, address, contact person with telephone number is included along with the contract start date and contract end date. The FSMC must include a reason for the contract termination of any contracts less than 5 years. Failure to do so will render the FSMC's proposal as non-responsive. The contracting SFA may communicate with other SFAs that have contracted with the FSMC concerning the lost accounts and use the information to evaluate the proposals. If other SFAs are contacted, all communication with those SFAs must be submitted to the state agency for review with Step 2 documents. The Step 1 document can be found in the FSMC instructions for completing the RFP. The SFA completes and submits the original signed Step 1 and proposed RFP to LDOE. Failure to submit the proposed RFP for prior approval for advertising may result in rebidding. Remember that all RFP contract documents must be signed by an employee of the organization that has been authorized to enter into contracts on behalf of the SFA. This should be the person listed on the online application as the superintendent or authorized representative. Include the proposal opening time, date, and address, and include the proposal award criteria form that includes the scoring weights of each evaluation criteria. After receipt of the completed signed Step 1 documents, the sponsor will receive written approval by LDOE to begin the contract process. The SFA must solicit proposals from an adequate number of known qualified suppliers, at least 4 to 5 qualified suppliers. The proposed procurement must be publicly advertised 2 separate days in a regional news source. The first advertisement must be at least 21 days before the proposal opening date. The RFP is not to be advertised before state agency approval has been given. In instances where the SFA advertises only once or advertises prior to state agency approval, the RFP must be re-advertised. All proposals received by the SFA must be open at the time and place stated in the RFP. RFPs are not to be open publicly. However, all committee members must be present when RFPs are open. Based on guidance received from USDA, as of school year 24-25, RFP openings are not required to be public. The state agency is no longer required to attend RFP openings. Only committee members should be present for RFP openings. These changes do not apply to the invitation for bid process. When awarding the FSMC contract, the SFA should appoint an evaluation team of at least 3 employees, preferably employees that are familiar with the child nutrition program. The contract must be awarded to the most responsible and responsive bidder with the lowest price. There must be transparency in the FSMC award process. The process and documents must be able to withstand public scrutiny. SFAs must be able to justify the award of an FSMC contract in sufficient detail that others would come to the same conclusion. Justification for scoring. The score for cost utilizes a formula for scoring the costs from each prospective contractor. The FSMC with the lowest cost receives the maximum number of points. To calculate the points for the other FSMC, divide the lowest price by their price and multiply by the maximum number of points. Do not round. This contract is a fixed price contract. The Food Service Management Company may not charge the SFA any other fees than meal times rate. No administrative, delivery, late fees, or other fees are allowable. The Food Service Management Company must propose a price based solely on meal times rate. The SFA must not sign any other contracts or agreements with the Food Service Management Company. If the SFA is using the prototype RFP as a FSMC contract, the FSMC or vendor may only charge the SFA for meals served, not delivered. This is stated in the prototype contract. The score for years of experience is based on the number of years the company has been in business. The maximum points for years of experience is 10. If an FSMC has been in business for 25 years, they can only receive a maximum of 10 points. The score for financial conditions and stability. The committee should review each FSMC's most recent independent audit to determine the score for financial conditions and stability. Documentation must be provided to justify the scoring of each FSMC. If adequate justification is not provided, the state agency will not approve the contract. If the FSMC does not submit the independent audit, the FSMC can be deemed as non-responsive. Financial statement alone will not be sufficient for the purposes of scoring. The independent audit must accompany all proposals, and the SFA should stress the importance of this requirement to vendors when sending out the RFP. We will now turn our attention to the service capability plan criteria. There are several factors that contribute to the service capability plan scoring. Let's review in detail what factors the SFAs may use to arrive at scoring and justification for scoring for this criterion. The scoring for the service capability plan must be based on how the FSMC demonstrates their ability to provide the services requested in the proposal, as well as verifiably proof that the FSMC has provided high-quality service to other SFAs. The scoring committee must do some homework to accurately evaluate this area. Contact other SFAs that utilize the FSMC. All correspondence should be submitted to the state agency with Step 2 documents. You can also request that the FSMC send in copies of student surveys and advisory committee reports, participation reports, and the results of administrative reviews. Were there any findings on the review that are attributed to the FSMC? Find out from other SFAs whether the FSMC was able to increase student participation. Increased participation means the students like the food and service. If the FSMC was unable to increase student participation or participation decreases, there may be issues with the FSMC's ability to provide the required service. Information like decreased participation should be documented under the justification column to justify the score given to each FSMC in this category. This table represents the November 2020 and November 2021 claims for one of the charter schools in Louisiana. The students expressed their dissatisfaction with the meals the FSMC was providing last year. As a result, the school went out to bid and chose another FSMC that they hoped would increase student satisfaction, or as I like to call it, customer satisfaction, and increase meal participation. The new FSMC increased participation. In comparing the November claims for 2020 and 2021, the lunch participation increased by 7.45%, and breakfast participation increased by 13.58%. How has the participation increased or decreased with each of the FSMCs that have submitted a proposal to your RFP? Reach out to other SFAs currently utilizing the FSMC service. Ensure that all of your communication is in writing because the SFA must submit this communication to the state agency. SFAs want to see an increase in participation during their contract with other school food authorities. SFAs definitely do not want to see a decrease in participation. Decreased participation is a sure sign that students do not like the meals that they are being served. If decreased participation is a factor in the service capability score, please include this information when writing the justification for the score. Ask other SFAs to review a summary of the student surveys they have conducted. We know that not every student enjoys the same foods, but the SFA can get an overall sense of how satisfied the students are with the food they are being served by reviewing the surveys. Again, ensure that all communication with other SFAs is completed in written form, as this information needs to be submitted to the state agency. Also ensure that no PII is at risk when exchanging information for the purpose of scoring in the service capability category. Each SFA that has a food service management company must have an advisory committee. What recommendations are the advisory committee making to other SFAs in the FSMC? These reports should be readily available from other SFAs. The documented advisory committee meeting, recommendations, and action by the SFA and FSMC are requirements of the Child Nutrition Program. If the SFA uses information from the advisory committee meeting reports to increase or decrease scoring, information related to this must be included in the justification column. The SFA committee members should research how each FSMC scores on health inspections in the schools they operate. You can access this information by using the link on the slide or by searching Eat Safe Louisiana inspections. Your SFA should ensure that the food service management company keeps their kitchens clean and follows all the safety and sanitation regulations required by LDH. The manager must have passed a Serve Safe or other equivalent course and be certified. As stated earlier, continuous failure to meet health inspection requirements as represented by LDH findings during school inspections or food service management company facility inspections, such as in central kitchens, is grounds for termination of the contract and exclusion from consideration in future RFPs. The inspection example on this slide indicates that the FSMC is not keeping a clean, sanitary kitchen. Many of the violations are related to areas of the kitchen that are not clean. Some of the violations are due to poor maintenance on the part of the school itself. The last violation indicates that the FSMC began operations before obtaining a permit to operate. The SFA must not allow food to be prepared without having a valid permit to operate in the name of the food service management company. Child nutrition program regulations do not allow any meals to be claimed in any child nutrition program without a valid permit to operate. If this information is used to score the FSMC, documentation of this fact must be provided in the justification column. Does the FSMC proposal encourage the use of commodities? Many FSMCs do not like to deal with commodities because there's a lot of paperwork involved. Some SFAs do not like using them for the same reason. If you, as the SFA, are not receiving commodities, you are leaving money on the table and doing a disservice to your students. Commodities decrease the cost of the food served to students, so it also decreases the price the students have to pay. The FSMC may be charging the SFA $3.30 for each meal, but the commodity credits may amount to 20 to 30 cents per meal. That amount is deducted from the bill from the FSMC, and it can be a sizable amount. It is fiscally irresponsible for an SFA not to take advantage of commodities. The statements on this slide are a part of the prototype FSMC contract. The first statement is SFAs are expected to apply for and utilize commodities. The purchase of commercial products when USDA donated foods are available would render the commercial purchase of these items as unreasonable and unnecessary and contributes to a higher cost for student meals. The second statement is that the FSMC shall accept and use USDA donated foods in as large of quantities as may be efficiently utilized in the SFA's nonprofit food service, subject to approval of the SFA. A proposal from a FSMC that places any restrictions on the use of commodities must be considered a non-responsive proposal and must not receive an award. The SFA will rate the FSMC based on the FSMC's plan for promoting the program. Promotion of the program is a key element to running a child nutrition program. Just like a restaurant, your program has to be promoted. There are so many unique educational and fun things that a food service management company can do that will promote the program and hopefully increase both participation and satisfaction. Many FSMCs are providing educational signage in the cafeteria. Some are installing closed circuit TV with nutritional messages and upcoming menus. There are also some that are advertising menus on Facebook and other social media platforms. Some are conducting nutrition activities such as promotions of the month, culinary exhibitions, and participation in farm to school activities. Find out how each FSMC plans to participate in wellness activities. How does the FSMC plan to participate and respond to the advisory committee's feedback concerning food service? These are all important things to look at when evaluating proposals. Great promotional ideas help grow the food service program. All involved achieve success. The students have high quality food and want to eat the meals. When the students want to eat the meals, they encourage other students to participate in the program through recommendations. More importantly, eating healthy, nutritious foods allows students to focus in class and improve student grades. We also have to be mindful that for some students, food insecurity is a reality. Healthy, nutritious school meals are the only meals that many students receive. We want all those meals to be enjoyable to our students as well as nourishing. When students want to eat the meals, the FSMC and the SFA make more money to keep the program going and improve meal quality and experience for the students eating the meals. This slide identifies the 4 required components of a wellness policy. Each school must have an active wellness policy. The FSMC can have a direct impact on the first 2 components, nutrition education and nutrition promotion. The FSMC can promote healthy eating and provide nutrition education with signage, creative menus, posters, bulletin boards, and social media. They can participate in farm to school activities, school gardens, and offer taste testing to students. They can agree to place fruits and vegetables where they are easy to access. They can share nutrition, calorie, and sodium content information with students and families. The SFA and FSMC should continually evaluate new ways to market and promote the school meals program. As an SFA, it's important to find out how responsive each FSMC team has been to other SFAs in participating in their wellness program. Evaluate what type of support and participation that each FSMC provides. If you think about it, the food service management company is one of the main players in complying with your wellness policy. Professional development for staff is also one of the evaluation criteria. What is each FSMC's plan for providing the required professional development training for their staff and maintaining the documentation? Does the FSMC have internal controls in place to ensure employees receive the required training? Several SFAs have received findings on administrative reviews because the FSMC did not provide the required number of hours of training or did not maintain proper documentation of the training. SFAs need to monitor the sanitation in the kitchens of their schools as well as any off-site kitchens. SFA should require the FSMC to provide a copy of all health inspections. The SFA must maintain all health inspections for the sites they operate and maintained on file for the state agency and/or USDA to review. They may also maintain copies of the health inspections of off-site kitchens where food is being prepared. USDA regulation requires that professional development records list the employee's name, employee school, training title, topic and objectives, training source, dates, and total training hours. The records must be maintained. These records may be kept electronically in a local database, in paper files, or through a tracking tool such as the USDA tracking tool or the Pennington tracking tool. If this information is not captured for each employee during each training, the SFA would receive a finding on their administrative review. USDA regulations concerning required professional standards applies to all school nutrition employees, whether the SFA operates the school nutrition program or contracts with a food service management company. Compliance with the required professional standards is included as a part of the administrative review. The number of annual training hours required each year varies by job category, as you can see from the chart on this slide. Training must be job specific and intended to help employees perform their duties well. Remember that the FSMC staff are required to have the same number of training hours as the SFA staff. Now we will look at optional criteria, evaluation criteria. SFAs have the option to add the evaluation criteria of experience in child nutrition programs and local procurement. Some of the information provided in these categories may help assist committee members in determining which FSMC may be a better fit for the organization when FSMCs are closely matched. The SFA may want to evaluate the experience of the regional or district manager, account manager, and registered dietitian working with child nutrition programs. This evaluation factor is optional, but it is important. The food service management company is only as good as the people working closely with the SFA. What kind of experience do they have in working with child nutrition programs? Working in hotels, colleges, or hospitals is much different than child nutrition. Local procurement is always an optional evaluation factor. An increasing number of child nutrition program operators want to source local foods and provide complementary educational activities that emphasize food, agriculture, and nutrition while supporting the local economy and farmers. Including local procurement and advertising to students through education or other activities can enhance the program and encourage students to eat your meals. Evaluating the FSMC's proposals is a difficult task. Committee members have to look at many factors. Some are objective, like cost. Others are subjective, like service capability and child nutrition program promotion. It is up to each member to review the proposal and decide how to score each FSMC. However, each member must communicate their reasoning or justification behind each score. You must provide adequate justification to award the contract to a food service management company. The state agency has to be able to review the same information as the committee members and arrive at the same conclusion. Detailed justification for awarding to one FSMC over another is very important in giving the state agency a full picture of the many factors that help committee members arrive at certain scores. As you can see through the information provided in this training, choosing the right FSMC for your SFA requires some work. Again, as a committee, you must be able to answer yes to this question. If anyone else were to review the FSMC proposal summary, and scorecard, would they come to the same conclusion? If not, you have not provided adequate justification, and the state agency will return the scoring forms to the SFA. This could postpone the award of the contract. Each SFA committee member will complete a separate Form A scorecard per committee member. Each committee member must sign their own Form A scorecard. There should be at least 3 members on the committee. Therefore, the state agency should receive at least 3 Form A scorecards. The Form B scorecard is the FSMC scoring summary. The scores from the Form A scorecards are transferred to the Form B FSMC scoring summary card. The contract is awarded to the FSMC with the highest score. This form must be signed by the head of the RFP committee. Form C is the Consolidated Proposal Summary Form. The SFA is to provide the fixed price per lunch meal equivalent, the total estimated amount of the bid, and the average total points received by each vendor. To arrive at the average total points received, the RFP committee head is to add up all the points awarded to each FSMC by each committee member. Then divide the total by the number of committee members. For instance, if committee member A gave FSMC 1 95 points, committee member B gave FSMC 1 72 points, and committee member C gave FSMC 1 100 points, the total points awarded to FSMC 1 will be 267. The head of the committee would then take 267 and divide that by the number 3 due to the number of committee members. Therefore, the average total points received for FSMC 1 would be 89 points. This is the number of points that the committee head would enter into the average total points received column for FSMC 1. All employees participating in the procurement food service management contract process must sign the standards of conduct and certification statement. The SFA must maintain the forms on file for the duration of the contract. Now we will begin to discuss documentation required to receive Step 2 approval. Ensure the certification regarding debarment, suspension, ineligibility, and voluntary exclusion has been signed before awarding the contract. Also, make sure the SFA has received the signed certification regarding lobbying and the disclosure of lobbying activities form. Execute the independent price determination certificate. Maintain these documents on file. Documents to be submitted include the signed Step 2 documents, completed scorecard A, completed scorecard B, and the consolidated summary form C. The SFA also submits copies of all correspondence with FSMCs concerning the RFP. A signed copy of the contract before execution must be submitted. The SFA can sign the contract document, but must not provide the FSMC until final approval of the contract is received from the state agency. Each FSMC proposal received by the SFA must be provided to the state agency. Provide the state agency with all documents received by other SFAs concerning lost accounts. The SFA must have documentation for all lost accounts for each FSMC. The state agency must be provided with an electronic copy of the completed proposal and all required attachments from each FSMC that submitted a proposal. Menu certification. Remember that each proposer must submit a 1-week menu and USDA menu certification workbook for all grade groups served. The menu certification must be submitted to the state agency with the Step 2 documentation. The menu certification may be included in the FSMC's proposal. The SFA must review the menu certifications for accuracy. After the state agency has informed the sponsor that the Step 2 documents are approved, the sponsor can inform the winning FSMC of their intent to award the contract to the FSMC. At that time, the FSMC must provide the sponsor with a certificate of insurance and, if applicable, a performance bond. The sponsor may not award the bid until written approval is received by the state agency. The SFA may not claim meals for reimbursement served by a company until the contract is approved. This is a USDA regulation and must be followed. The SFA is legally responsible for the conduct of the food service program and must supervise the food service operations in such a manner as will ensure compliance with the rules and regulations of the state agency and USDA regarding each of the child nutrition programs covered by the contract. The SFA is responsible for ensuring that all corrections have been made if problems were noted during a sponsor review, the LDOE administrative review, or program audit. Too often, the SFA turns the management of the food service operation to a food service management company and/or a consultant. The SFA must remember that they are 100% responsible for the food service program, and the responsibility cannot be delegated to an FSMC or consultant. The 21-day cycle menu included in the RFP must be adhered to for the first 21 days of meal service. After that, changes may be made only with written approval of the sponsor. The written request by the FSMC to change the menu must be accompanied by an updated nutrient analysis. The SFA must receive the updated analysis before approving menu changes. The analysis must show that the menu is in compliance with USDA regulations. The SFA is to maintain all menu change approvals and analysis on file. The SFA is responsible for ensuring that all menu requirements are met and only reimbursable meals are served and claimed. The SFA is responsible for certifying that the claim is correct. They must also make certain that the food production records are completed each day for all reimbursable meals. The completed food production records must provide information that is contained in the LDOE prototype food production record, regardless of whether they are completed by hand or computer generated. All meals must meet the detailed specifications for the grade groups being served. No payment is to be made to the FSMC for meals that do not meet the minimum component requirements, quantity requirements, vegetable subgroup requirements, and nutrient specifications for the age grade group served. The sponsor should be monitoring the menu used by the FSMC to ensure they are meeting the required specifications. There have been many findings during the administrative reviews where the FSMC is not meeting the minimum requirements, particularly quantity requirements and vegetable subgroup requirements. The FSMC must provide an updated nutrient analysis to the SFA when menu changes are made to ensure that nutrient specifications are being met. The FSMC must provide the SFA with documentation of food costs and revenues on a monthly basis and must include food costs for reimbursable meals, food costs for non-program foods, revenue from non-program foods, revenue from program foods, and total revenue. This information is needed by the SFA to complete the non-program revenue tool. The sponsor must monitor the food service program through periodic on-site visits, including at least one on-site review of the lunch counting and claiming system at each school administered by the SFA. These visits must be documented and kept on file for administrative reviews. The on-site counting and claiming review must take place prior to February 1st of each school year. If the review discloses problems with the school's meal counting and claiming procedures, the SFA must ensure that the school implements corrective action and within 45 days of the review, conducts a follow-up on-site review to determine that the corrective action resolved the problem. In compliance with 2 CFR 200, parts 420 through 475, compensation of employees for the time devoted and identified to school food service. The SFA must have documentation of how an employee's time working with the child nutrition program is calculated. For example, the director of operation has many functions. Only a small part of their day is spent working in the child nutrition program, especially if they employ a FSMC and consultant. This documentation needs to be available in accordance with your agreement to operate the USDA programs at all times for audit or reviews. The only time the SFA should see non-domestic agricultural products being purchased by the FSMC is when a domestic product is not available or when the price of the domestic product is substantially higher than the non-domestic product. Many domestic canned and frozen fruits and vegetables are available with the exception of some tropical varieties like bananas, pineapples, mandarin oranges. Some domestically grown fresh fruits and vegetables are available seasonally. It is the SFA's responsibility to know what agricultural products are available from the U.S. before approving exceptions. Please refer to the Buy American certification form. If assistance is needed, please contact the state agency. Termination language was added to the RFP to cover a severe breach of contract that will warrant immediate termination of the contract by the SFA upon written notification to the FSMC. The severe Breach of contract would include failure to maintain and enforce required standards of sanitation, failure to maintain proper insurance coverage as outlined by the contract, failure to provide required information or statements in the required time frame outlined by the contract, or failure to maintain quality of service at a level satisfactory to the SFA. The SFA may terminate the contract immediately with written notice to the FSMC. Please be aware that failure to meet health inspections as represented by LDH findings during school site inspections or other food facilities under the FSMC or vendor is not only grounds for termination of the contract, but may exclude the FSMC or vendor from consideration in future RFPs or contracts. The SFA is also responsible for making sure all bills are monitored prior to payment to assure that the FSMC has not double billed or included costs that are not allowed by the contract. Invoices must reflect only the number of meals times the contract rate. Second meals, adult meals, and visitors are also charged at the contract rate. The SFA is responsible for ensuring that the advisory committee of parents, students, and teachers has met periodically to assist in the menu planning and meetings are documented. The FSMC director should be included in the advisory committee meetings and be responsive to the concerns of the committee. As stated before, the SFA is responsible for ensuring that all SFA and FSMC staff have received the required number of professional development hours. Remember, the FSMC will not receive the finding, and the consultant will not receive the finding. The SFA will be the one receiving the finding on administrative reviews if requirements are not met. And if you have any questions, please contact LDOE's Division of Nutrition Support. You can call at the main number 225-342-9661 or email with any questions. And thank you for your participation in the Contracting with the Food Service Management Company training.